So my all-consuming pop culture obsession in recent months to some extent, years to some extent, has been a Cobra Kai. I spent an embarrassing amount of time rewatching the episodes and even clips and watching YouTube videos about it and stuff like that. It's just I'm fanatical about it, really. And to say it's my favorite TV show or favorite pop culture thing in general going on at the moment would be accurate, but it would also be understating things on par with stating that the sun is the brightest star in the sky. It's yes, obviously, nothing. The second most thing comes nowhere in the remote vicinity whatsoever of how fanatical I've become, and I don't say that as a good thing necessarily, not at all. I say that kind of as a bad thing, I think, to realize you've kind of become a fanboy of something. I don't think Ferris Bueller said of isms, I don't think fanboyism is good, for a variety of reasons. I think perhaps most foremost is it kind of blinkers your objectivity, which is kind of why I'm decided to do this little mini rant here on my second channel, because I was trying to write a season 5 review for my main channel, and I found myself getting kind of torn off onto a little tangent about my general fanboyism of the show and whether or not that's a good or bad thing, and it became too much of a tangent to where I was no one who wants to listen to a season 5 review of Cobra Kai is going to want to listen to this weird vlog-esque rant about this slightly strange man's thoughts on fanboyism and his own fanboyism. But yeah, it's just kind of both because it blinkers your objectivity, but even maybe more so because it can curdle so fast and so hard. It's if a show that you're is pretty good, I kind of like it, or it's I'll maybe catch it when it's on. If it goes bad, then it's not really a big deal. I've dropped dozens of shows over recent years, anywhere between slightly into season 1 to several seasons in, just because they went bad, and it never broke my heart. They're just kind of whatever. It's someone you're in a relationship with for 2 weeks breaking up with you, and you kind of get along, but you're okay, whatever. Whereas if you have you think that someone is your soulmate and you're in so hard and so deep, and they break up with you, then it's a icy knife through the heart that can take months or years to recover from, right? That's how it is when a show that you've become a fanboy for goes bad. And for whatever reason, it seems like it's TV shows more than any other media, more than movies, more than video games, more than books. Really, it's TV shows where fanboyism tends to hit supernova levels for me. I don't know why that is. It's combination of factors. It's maybe the long form kind of content of a novel mixed with sort of the interactive fan community of a video game mixed with just kind of the visual musical presentation of a movie. So it's the sweet spot of all the mediums almost in that way to invigorate sort of a true religious fervor for someone who lacks a real religion such as myself. So I thought maybe I'd explore kind of the history of my own TV fanboyism and where it's worked out and where it's gone bad. And my general instinct is that it's gone bad more than the other way around. But yeah, let's explore. Now, up through the end of high school, I was more of a movie and video game fanboy than anything else, if I had any sort of inclinations that way. Yeah, there was never really any TV shows I was religious about at all in high school. I watched Friends, but if an episode was bad or season was bad, it never, it didn't affect me that much. I watched a lot of the WB teen dramas like Smallville, Gilmore Girls, Everwood, Dawson's Creek, but I was never remotely at fanboy level for any of them, and I would skip episodes. It wouldn't really bother me that much. I would skip stretches of episodes. I would make fun of them while I watched. It would be almost a little bit of a riff session with some of them sometimes. So, nothing remotely fanboyish. These days it's more the opposite. Video games I'm tend to be very cynical and joyless about almost all the time, to a fault, where I can my blood doesn't get that hot over the entire medium of video games these days. If a franchise I love releases a bad game, I'm just kind of I love Final Fantasy games, older ones, but I look at this Final Fantasy 16 trailer and I'm okay, yeah, sure, whatever, bro. And movies, I don't know, one thing I was trying to do for my channel at one point, my main channel, was to do a top 10 or top 15 movies of the 2010, of the 2010s, right? 2010 through 2019. The entire idea for the project kind of petered out because I realized that I struggled to come up with 15 or 10 movies that I really cared that much about. I didn't struggle to come up with 10 or 50 movies I liked. I could make a list of 100 movies from that decade I liked, but when I was talking about movies I'm like enthusiastic for, things I feel the need to evangelize to people, to defend, that I really love, I could come up with about 4 movies. So I was kind of like, this would be a slightly underwhelming list if I'm doing my top 10 movies of an entire decade list on YouTube, and I'm talking about my supposed 7th favorite movie of a decade, and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. You might want to check it out. It's all right. Yeah, I don't care anymore. I don't care about anything, but TV shows are often different. Anyway, so this isn't chronologically first on this list. I think it would be chronologically second, but the first one I kind of want to mention because it's the example. It's the foremost example of this phenomenon. Would be Lost, the legendary island science fiction mystery mindfuck show on ABC from 2004 to 2010. Is that right? It's the true ultimate example of this phenomenon of fanboyism curdling into something foul, because at a certain point in season 1, like after season 1, I should say, when it was all out on DVD, there was a tiny little flashpoint in time where Lost was possibly my favorite creation, right? Like movies, TV, literature, video games, music, art. There was a point in time when season 1 was complete where Lost was like my favorite thing. Like I watched the season 1 like DVD set probably 4 times through in the 3 months between when season 1 ended and season 2 started. I pitched it. I tried to get everyone I knew to watch it. I was manic for it. Then that started kind of a slide in early season 2, and they introduced the hatch and the numbers and the tail survivors, and slowly kind of slid down with occasional rises up. I think season 4 was notably an improvement, until we got to the season 6 with the flash sideways and the eventual afterlife revelation and the magic butt plug and the glowing pool and all that, upon which everything I had felt about Lost curdled into basically hatred. Like how a lot of people online these days talk about and feel about the Game of Thrones finale and final season. That's basically more, I can see where they're coming from, and I'll discuss that in a minute. That's more how I kind of felt about Lost. I despised the series finale with a white-hot supernova of pure hatred that I, to this day, struggle to articulate and fully understand myself how much I hated it. Like I deeply hate that series finale, and with the kind of afterlife revelation, it extends outward to the whole season. I have utter contempt for it. So that's like my that's my 10-0 example of fanboyism curdling. It's the ultimate example, because it went so bad. I mean, it was like it was a barrel full of my favorite ice cream that someone just diarrheaed in and mixed their diarrhea in. That's how much my appetite for Lost sank through after the end happened. There's no other example on what I'm going to talk about here that's as extreme as that by any means, but let's look at other, for better or worse, other shows I've been a fanboy of. And I do, being a fanboy of something isn't necessarily the same thing as really liking it. There's other shows I've really liked, Hannibal, King of the Hill, West Wing, Avatar, and Legend of Korra. Really liked them, but they never became kind of part of my pop culture identity the way these shows I'm going to talk about did, at least for certain amounts of time. Arrested Development, interesting example. I guess this is my kind of I liked it before it was cool sort of smug asshole thing, is I did watch Arrested Development when it was actually on the air. I didn't find it myself. Someone in college introduced it to me, but I fell totally in love with it. Like Lost, I'm kind of mostly on DVD between season 1 and 2, and then fanatically watched it to the end. This is another one I evangelized everyone. I rewatched the seasons 1 and 2, especially on DVD, many times. And season 3, I thought also very good. Series finale didn't blow me away, but it didn't, nothing remotely like how I felt about Lost. There was still a ton in the final season of Arrested Development that I loved. I still laugh thinking about them talking about the home builders organization that, no, the HBO is not going to want us. Well, then it's showtime. We have to put on a show after dinner. So, so my love of that show was basically born up through the end of that 3-season run. I really loved it, and I continued to try to show it to people, continued to love it. But then season 4 came along, the revival season, which one of the most anticipated pop culture events of my lifetime for me, along with the Matrix sequels, Two Towers and Return of the King, what else? The Dark Knight. It was in that level of anticipation for me, was that Arrested Development season 4 revival, and it was good. I liked it more when they recut it a few years later into I think it was 22 episode, a sequential narrative rather than the character by character focus, which was a little strange. I liked it. I think it was by a fairly large margin, the weakest of the 4 seasons. Very large margin, like it's, well, you can't see my hands here because I don't have a video on, but picture my hand really high up near the ceiling for season 1 and 2, an inch down for season 3, and then 4 feet down for season 4. But I did still like it. I didn't think it undermined the original show. Then season 5 came along, and I didn't particularly like it at all. The chemistry was just way off. The murder mystery aspect, just about nothing worked for me. When they put up the second, I think it was 8 episodes, the second run of season 5 they put up, it took me this run of episodes that, what did it collectively run? 4 hours, maybe even less. Took me about a year to get through it. Months would pass in between me putting on the next episode, and when I did, I would kind of have trouble not looking at my phone while it was on. This is coming down from a show that I was screaming, like my gut aching with laughter, watching like season 2 of Arrested Development in its best moments. I would watch the episodes again, and I would be in awe of like the scripts, and this went to season 5, a show that I could barely sit through the episode. And I think it totally befouls the legacy of the show. So fanboyism curdled again. Maybe not as bad as Lost, but to the extent that when I think back on Arrested Development, it's now very much undermined how I felt about it in the day. Let's all move on to a slightly more positive example. This is another one that Friday Night Lights. This is another one that I pitched to everyone. I tried to get everyone I knew to watch it. Go to family reunions, and I would try to convince distant family members I see once a decade to watch it. Girls I was in relationships with, I would try to get to watch it. When I talked to my high school friends, this was after high school, on Instant Messenger, I'd try to tell them to watch it. Family members, friends, I would try to get everyone to watch Friday Night Lights. I think it was just a tone poem of a show about life in small town America. Possibly some people have said the sports action was unrealistic. I don't care about real sports, only fictional, so it had no impact on me. Now, this is a funny one because, season 1, I think, is, if I was to make a list of top 10 TV seasons of all time, Friday Night Lights season 1 would definitely be on the list. Then it did get bad in season 2. Right away, we had a whole murder mystery thing that didn't work with the tone of the show. But then it did a freaky thing that TV shows almost never do. It got really good again. And then my fandom resumed anew in season 3 and 4 and 5. If I was to rewatch today, there's a certain amount of real-world political issue pushing in season 4, especially, that would probably annoy me now more than it did at the time, like 10 years ago or 12 years ago when the season first aired. But with that said, I still think it's, in this one, unlike the last 2 shows I mentioned, Arrested Development, talking about the season 5 version, Friday Night Lights had a beautiful and wonderful series finale that I found very moving and effective, and just a perfect tonal, if not necessarily narratively convincing in every way, but at least tonally convincing, and wrapped up the character arcs very well, and it completed the poem, so to speak. So Friday Night Lights is, after 2 kind of negative examples of being a fanboy of something, Friday Night Lights, here's one that worked out well, because great series that I still love. Here's a funny one, Community, seasons 1 through 3 of this show possibly eclipsed Arrested Development for me in terms of my love for them. I thought so many episodes, so wonderfully ambitious. This is another one I showed to everyone who would have it. Another one I just very passionate about. Couldn't believe how good it was. Season 1 through 3, some of those episodes, and season 2 especially, like the My Dinner with Andre, the Western paintball episode, the fake flashbacks going into season 3, the alternate timelines. Dungeons and Dragons, that was season 2, a canceled episode now. But then season 4 obviously lost its creator and dropped off pretty hard. Season 5 is clearly the 4th best season of the show by a pretty big margin, but still we started leaking cast members. Then we got to season 6 and lost more cast. The episodes got longer because it moved to Yahoo. The pacing became weird. It started to feel kind of tired, and it became meta in a bad way. The show's always been meta in that it commented on fictional tropes and sitcom tropes. Season 6 almost broke the fourth wall and started like the creator, Dan Harmon, started inserting himself into it in a lot of ways more directly. And it turns out that Dan Harmon is actually a profoundly irritating person who I just want to tell his stories through the medium of television and otherwise shut up in every way imaginable. So yeah, that one, it didn't curdle into like outright dislike like Arrested Development and Lost eventually did. But I've never gone back and I rewatched seasons 1, 2, and 3 of Community several times over, just again and again and again. I had a blog where I wrote reviews of the episodes. It was just wild for that show. I'd go on the AV Club and read the reviews and these thousands long comment threads I would read through and talk about Community on. I was so into it. Season 6, never gone back and rewatched a single episode. Never, series finale I've seen one time. I remember being good, but I never cared to go back and rewatch any of season 6. I thought it was not nearly as good as seasons 1 through 3 on any level because so much the cast was missing. It was so weird. Let's move on to another one, Spartacus. Man, this is still an underrated show to this day. I think it's so awesome. It's so badass. So bloody. The plot twists come so fast and hard. It's so just brutal with its characters. The action scenes are so great considering the budget it was working on. It was mostly just shot in a green screen warehouse with some sets built in it. And I thought they made it so awesome for what they had. The only problem with it really is one that it's not the show's fault at all. Is that unfortunately the main actor who played Spartacus, Andy Whitfield, passed away from cancer. So we had to recast him, and it's weird, but it's not the show's fault. And I do think they came back from that and proceeded to kick ass, even with a new actor in the part. And the series finale is very badass. It's very cool. So that's, that was another one that I was just fanatical about for a time. You got to be a little bit hesitant about who you introduce it to because it's so weird and visually strange and bloody and lets the just tits and ass fly freely in a way that probably no TV show from now until I die of old age ever will again. I don't think you just couldn't get away with that now. 10 years ago was a whole different world in terms of your ability to do that on television. Yeah, that's another one that went well. I still think 4 seasons of just gold to that show. I think that show is awesome. Moving on to another bloody and nudity and action-packed, twisty, epic show, Game of Thrones. Obviously, everyone knows Game of Thrones. It was probably the single most popular IP of the last decade after Marvel. Became a massive, huge phenomenon that had literally tens of thousands of people probably talking, writing reviews and doing commentaries and reactions and writing and making videos and doing podcasts about. What can I even say about it's still, through House of the Dragon, still popular. I had been a fan of the books for a long time before the show ever came along. So yeah, it was a surreal at least all through season 1, I barely even registered it in the way that you can critically analyze a TV show because it was so surreal to me to be seeing this story come to life on screen. I never would have imagined when I was reading the Song of Ice and Fire books that would happen. And I was just loving the entire fandom surrounding it for a long time. I never even, some people turned on it in season 5. I never did. I was still loving it. I think season 6 is in some ways one of the best seasons, and not so much in terms of convincing realism and the establishment of clear world building in the first few seasons, just in terms of holy shit moments, Hold the Door, Battle of the Bastards, The Sept, so and I think we all kind of know about season 8 from multi perspectives what kind of went wrong there. The battle against the Night King not being the final battle of the show was strange. Turns out we've been watching just a super villain who would firebomb a city like 9/11 times 10 with Daenerys. Yes, that was all weird. And it's hard to deny that it undermined the show and its legacy. But unlike Lost, which I can't even like go back and watch clips from or think about without being angry anymore, I still hold tremendous love for most of Game of Thrones' run, and I still enjoy going back and watching it. So I don't know. It didn't curdle as badly for me as it seemed to for a lot of other people. I still think the show collectively is like a 9 out of 10, despite how it ended, whereas Lost for me like dropped down to like a 3 out of 10 after its ending. So I don't know. I have a different perspective on that than other people. Of all the shows I talked about, I don't think it, certainly like Spartacus and Friday Night Lights would rank above it in terms of my fanboyism running through and ending well. But I would also put it on a level in between. Like those shows I just mentioned, Friday Night Lights and Spartacus, but I would put it above probably Lost and Arrested Development and Community in terms of my fondness for it looking back on it today. So I don't know, that's kind of an in-between example in terms of fanboyism. And there's other in-between examples. Here's kind of a couple side example shows that don't quite fit into the main thrust of this little discussion. Fringe comes to mind. I never quite evangelized that show to people in the same way as the ones I just mentioned. I never considered my main TV fan identity to be a Fringe fan, but it was a steady 8 out of 10 show that I was really excited for every week. Final season bit off more than it could chew, maybe. And then it tried to do kind of this almost Star Wars-ish sort of rebellion against this evil empire of like weird alien android interdimensional being bullshit things. It tried being a little bit more of an action epic than it really had the capacity to do, but I did still enjoy it until the end. And I think still one of the coolest sci-fi shows. How other people I guess feel about the X-Files is maybe how I feel about Fringe. Is I had such a high level of enjoyment for that show. So that's one that ended well, more or less. Here's another interesting example is 24. Now, I say interesting example because 24 is, it's very much a contender for my favorite TV show of all time. It's clearly in the top 5. I don't know if it's number 1, but it's really, really high up there. But it's, at the same time, I never was quite a fanboy for it because I got into the show after it kind of started to do a downslide. Like season 6 is universally recognized as the weakest season, and that's when I started to watch the show on TV. And season 7 and 8 are better, but it was really going back and watching the golden age of Jack Bauer, seasons 1 through 5. That's when I was like, oh shit, this is the thing. This is my kind of show, right? And that's the seasons I'm thinking of when I say it's maybe my favorite show ever. It's season 6 through 8. That's kind of when it becomes somewhat lesser. So I was always perfectly cognizant of the fact that I was watching a show on the decline. So I was never like when people would say like season 6 sucked, I was never offended like a fanboy would be. I was always like, yeah, but you should check out season 1 and 5. That's the good shit. But then when it came back for Live Another Day, I loved that. That was my favorite TV show of 2014, hands down. I thought that was seasons 1 through 5 quality again. And it was so awesome. And it ended well, but not conclusively. So I still hope that they bring Jack Bauer back for a 10th season that fully wraps up his story. I think Kiefer Sutherland still looks good enough to do it. I hope they do it. So that's a show that I'm a huge fan of, but I don't think I was ever quite a blinded fanboy. And that brings us through to today, when I've become a much more cynical and joyless than I used to be, and I have trouble really investing fully in anything. I'm trying to think about movies I've really given much of a shit about in the last few years, and I really struggle to. Even series that I used to be incredibly passionate about, like James Bond, I care a lot less about than I used to, at least in terms of like their current output. I still rewatch the old James Bond movies over and over. Yeah, Top Gun Maverick was very cool. At the same time, it's not like a new religion for me. It's just something I enjoyed in the 2 hours I was in the theater. What else in the last few years? I can't think of fucking anything. I can't think of anything. But then that brings us to Cobra Kai. I'm so fucking I'm just like fanatical about this show right now. And I I don't like that I'm that way, because if it somehow shits the bed by the end, like so many other shows through the years have been, it'll be devastating to me, because there's almost nothing else that I'm particularly into now. That's like all my eggs are in this one basket. So that's not good, you know? It's not good. That shouldn't be the way it is, because, man, if they shit the bed or get like preachy or weird or just something goes, I don't know, fucking if one of the actors just quits the show like it's happened to other shows, man, I would be I'd be devastated, you know? So in that way, a lot of people are saying they want the show to go on for years. I don't want that. I think it should end with season 6. I think they should do the world tournament. I think they should wrap up every single storyline. Just bam, bam, bam. Every episode should be concluding subplots that have been going on since the pilot of the show onward. And we should just bring this to a great conclusion. And then I can have this wonderful body of work that I look on with just nothing but positivity, which would be something unlike to some extent, except Friday Night Lights, any of the shows I've really just discussed that I've been but yeah, that's just my general thoughts on my TV fanboyism, for better or mostly for worse, it seems, but not exclusively. So I guess it's just my plea to the universe for Cobra Kai to please end well.